Theodora, for each of you, but this one, Theodora, are there laws saying that health officials can't take into account the health effects when someone is protesting the installation of a 5G tower in their area? In other words, are there laws that a homeowner can't say that I don't want this 5G tower near my home because it's going to affect my health? Can you please explain this? Also, second question for you is, does my local electrical water company have the right to put smart meters in or outside my house? And does that matter? One more thing I wanted to ask about. Sorry, I can't. And what is the situation with 6G or 7G? Should we be concerned, or is that far in the future? So those are the three questions for you. And Aly, I'd like to ask you, should I be concerned about pharmaceutical drugs in my water? In other words, when someone pees, it goes through the system, and somehow I've been told that we have pharmaceutical drugs now in all of our water. Does water distillation get rid of this? Should we be concerned about this? And then the second question, just because we always hear the term BPA talked about, what is BPA and where is this found and what impact does it have on my health? So Theodora, you can start.
Okay, so this is a lot because I also want to touch on things people can do in their homes, but going to people speaking, people can talk about the health issue if there's a cell tower or a cell antenna that comes in front of their home. The Telecom Act is a federal law that was passed that says that the siting cannot be due to environmental concerns. It's Section 704 of the Telecom Act. Then that was interpreted by case law in certain circuits to mean that health cannot be the only reason that you don't put a cell tower where a cell tower is being slated to go. And that is what we would consider an overreach of the statute of the Telecommunications Act. But more importantly, if you're in a situation where you have a tower in front of your home, we have found, just FYI, that there have been antennas that have been moved when the whole community gets organized on it. But it is important to talk about. And in fact, there are many reasons which are not related to health as to why you do not want a cell tower in front of your home. They are ugly. They're aesthetically unpleasing. They can drop your property value. There can be industrial issues when you have an industrial equipment in front of your home or school that make it not part of your residential neighborhood, for example. So I'm not giving legal advice. What I'm saying is that, yes, there is a law that has been interpreted to mean sort of that, although it's an overreach. It is a section of the law that needs to be taken down and changed so that our rights are respected as the public health is respected. Because how can we not be able to go to court to address this issue or raise this issue? It's pretty outrageous to be told that you can't use health when what is more important than our health? And in terms of the smart meters, that's an issue. I only touched on it, but smart meters also emit radio frequency radiation. They also introduce harmonics, which we haven't talked about, but can make your electrical system in your home be in a way that can impact your health. You can look up harmonics or harmonic interference, dirty electricity as well, the work of Dr. Milham. So related to what can you do about a smart meter, I will tell you that in our community, and it's still a situation, however, we were able to, when the water company was going to put a smart meter on everyone's home, to raise the issue of health and to advocate, and many people worked hard. Dr. David Carpenter in New York came and gave a presentation on this issue as well. And they stopped the program. Now, in your community, if you are facing this situation, ask for an opt-out. And it should be free. It shouldn't cost money to have something on your home that you don't want or need. but get a non-wireless meter if you can. And if you can't, check and see if you have a local smart meter group or even a local 5G group. A lot of the smart meter groups are now working on 5G, but there are people who are educated on this issue in every state. You can go to Stop Smart Meters as well to learn about that and to address the smart meter issue. I'll also just add, in your home, this is a corded phone. And, with my cord got tangled, which sometimes happens because I'm on the phone all day. Get a corded phone, a corded mouse. Use Ethernet, which Ethernet to connect your computer to the internet. You can run this in your home. You can put your Wi-Fi router as a start on a timer. So at night, at least it's not on. Give yourself time to rest at night. You can also take this Ethernet and connect a lot of cell phones with a wire. So you don't have to have it on and radiating, especially if you're at home. There's a lot of applications you can do with a hardwired phone. You also can go through your home and any stuff that's smart, if it's wireless, see if you can swap it out with something that's non-wireless. Those are some of the key issues to do in your home. Oh, and with your phone, don't put it to your head. Always have it at a distance. Minimize it as much as possible. Learn about airplane mode. Now airplane mode it'll turn off most of the antennas. It used to be we could say use airplane mode, then you can take pictures, you can take videos, but you won't have radiation emissions. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. You need to turn the Bluetooth off, the location off, any antennas that are on off. If you, for example, turn Siri on a laptop, it often raises antennas up, even if your laptop has the Wi-Fi off and you're using Ethernet. So turn your antennas off and use a corded phone more. There are a lot of tips and tricks, like if you want music, how do you get music? Well, have it pre-downloaded so you're not using streaming music. Don't stream videos on your wireless devices. Choose to use a wired connection if you can. It's faster, safer, and more secure. Those are a few, and we have on our website at ehtrust.org a lot of information on how you can reduce exposure. And everything you do makes a difference. Take one step, learn more, take the next step. It really makes a difference.
Let me just ask you one quick thing. If someone's in the back seat of the car with their phone and the Wi-Fi is off, but the Bluetooth is connecting to the car music, is that a minimal exposure? Is that acceptable?
Well, we would recommend not using wireless devices and to turn off any wireless features when you're in a car, because the radiation metal can interact with the wireless, can interact, reflect, and do unique things when it's with metal. So we would recommend having something in the car rather than the phone. It's better than the phone to the head. However, there's still, exposures that are happening, and we would recommend turning the wireless features off of the car and having your phone completely off. And one other thing I would say about the phone is that even when you're not using it, it's radiating all the time. So when you have wireless devices, video gaming consoles, even your laptop, if you're not using it, although the laptop, if it's open, and tablets, they will be emitting all the time, searching for the nearby cell tower or router. And you want to have those antennas turned off. So it's kind of like you can reduce, like streaming a movie in your car while you're driving, someone in the back seat, your kids watching a movie. That we don't recommend that. That's a higher radiation than other things, because that's the highest. You'll get highest exposures, and actually, that's something everyone should know: is when do you get highest exposures? In a car, in an area of low service, when you're streaming movies and video, when you're moving large files. That is what you want to minimize for yourself. So
But just
I wish
if
I had a better answer. I think there should be a way to connect it with a wire to a USB. What we're advocating for in cars is systems so that people can play their downloaded music, but not have it be wireless.
But if the wireless is turned off on the phone, all it's doing is Bluetooth. If the wireless is off on the phone, it's just Bluetoothing to the system in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Is that acceptable, or is that still?
Well, I would say you just brought up something which is really important, which is another tip. Turn off the antennas you're not using at any one time. Let's say you need to use a certain antenna on your phone, be it Bluetooth or maybe you actually need to make a call. It's an emergency and you're in a situation with your work where you need to be making calls and you haven't figured out other solutions. Turn all the other antennas off so there's just one on. Also turn off your notifications. I'm not going to use the word acceptable or safe or not safe because it's all a matter of reducing exposure. So you're going to reduce it if it's only Bluetooth and you're not streaming the music. However, it is still an exposure. And unfortunately, we don't know what a safe level is, sort of like food. You want to reduce what you can and find solutions. I mean, we still have a CD player. We use that. We also have a way we can plug in the USB cord with files, but I recognize the challenge, and I wish I could say, oh, that's safe, but what is safe has not been determined, and there have been effects found at such low levels that we would say, do what you can when you can, and that's my recommendation. And cars are a real challenge. Dr. Moskowitz has a whole page on cars that's quite worth delving into. AirPods, no, because they actually have a unique way that one goes to the other one with your brain in the middle and then to the phone. So if you're using earbuds or AirPods and you're talking on the phone, you're getting the radiation from the phone, which is probably somewhat near your body, and then the Bluetooth back and forth to the AirPod, and then one AirPod to the other. We have a page on the website on that one. So,
Steve, I'm old, but I think you talked about BPA. Is that correct? You wanted to talk about BPA?
Yes. I wanted to know about pharmaceutical drugs in our water. How do we avoid this? Does distilled water get rid of this? And what again is BPA, and where are these found? And those two things.
All right, I'm going to try to do this relatively quickly. So yes, we do pee into our sewage, and the sewage makes its way into our water treatment plants, 160,000 water treatment plants across the country. And yes, those chemicals, we don't have the infrastructure. They are not part of the Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974 that we all the water treatment plants actually are still under that regulatory legislation, do not require removing many chemicals, 90,000 plus chemicals, coal ash, fracking chemicals, the list goes on and on if you saw the talk this morning. But certainly medications that we, many Americans use and certainly urinate into the water, and it becomes part of our water, potentially our water system, because we don't have the infrastructure and the filtration systems to remove them. So there are lots of studies showing antidepressants, estrogenic chemicals from oral contraceptives, blood pressure medications, anti-inflammatories. So again, I hold them at the same risk in general as many other chemicals that are not filtered off at our water treatment plants across the country. And so I again say, no matter what is not or is handled at water treatment plants, we want to at least use the point of use contraptions in our home that will help to minimize those contaminant exposures. Do certain distillers remove those? Yes, my understanding is they do. Again, it is all dependent on the system, the manufacturer, and what they say and what they've been tested to show what they remove. So you have to go individual to each of these companies and really try to address it through the companies. reverse osmosis in general that are well vetted, that are certified, that are made in America, that are not outsourced for parts, that have all the components. There's a sediment component, there's a carbon component, there's a reverse osmosis component. All these components make up your RO system, and should remove those chemicals, because most of the very good ones remove viruses as a litmus test of the smallest particulate matter that they can remove, and medication breakdown products are larger in terms of their size often. Except for nanoparticles, which is a whole nother story for another time, because nanoparticles are a new type of science that are making their way into our waterways as well. Okay, great. So again, trying to filter at the point of use is key, and then just getting the right RO filter or type of filter you can get. Any is fine to me, at least moving your way up in terms of the aggressive ability and capabilities of your filter. Now, BPA, I will start by saying bisphenol A is a chemical that's probably the most well studied of any endocrine disrupting chemical. It was discovered to be an endocrine disrupting chemical, although it wasn't labeled that in 1936. Researchers discovered that it was quite good at affecting hormones. It was actually going to become a fertility drug until they decided to use DES instead, diethylstilbestrol. So funny how that worked out. They also found that BPA as a compound, interestingly enough, had polymers that were, when they stuck together, actually created a hard kind of epoxy clear material, which became, the bottles for Bayer aspirin. In fact, it was owned by Bayer that made a lot of BPA early on. BPA was also found to increase the size of chickens. I mean, it was fed to chickens, and it was considered to do the fertility thing. Is basically making chickens larger, produce more chicken meat. And so it was actually added to chicken feed early on. That being said, BPA, because of its endocrine potential properties of mimicking estrogen and a bunch of other potential endocrine effects, it was removed from baby bottles in 2012 due to the overwhelming findings of its capability to affect the endocrine system, the human endocrine system, hormones. I will mention this, my co-author, Dr. Frederick vom Saal, for both this book and for the textbook. This is where you get, he gets his due, is an unsung hero, as many, many researchers are. He is quite well known at this point, but he's not considered a rock star like Mick Jagger, although he should be. He was, his research was largely responsible for removing BPA from plastic baby bottles and some sports bottles in 2012. But unfortunately, that was all they could get it out of. And it is actually one of the most widely used industrial chemicals worldwide, particularly in the US. I think it's about 20 billion pounds of BPA is used in the United States in a variety of products, including food packaging, where it's considered generally regarded as safe under the GRAS regulations under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of 1958. So, we have a lot of chemicals, majority of chemicals that kind of grandfathered in through poor legislation, end up not only in our food, but also in our food packaging, which makes its way into our food. BPA mimics estrogen at very low levels. It can block androgens. It can block receptors. It can affect thyroid hormone. It can affect, again, breast cancer risk. It's suspected in terms of increased risk for hormone-sensitive cancers. It can make fat cells larger. It can make stem cells turn into fat cells. It's been implicated in autoimmune diseases, which I hope to talk about in a few years when I get my next book off, which will certainly tie the world of immunity and autoimmunity to many of these chemicals, which we know is a real issue. But the idea is that BPA has been classified as an endocrine disruptor. It's probably the most well-studied. 8,000 papers at this point, according to Fred, now exist internationally on its effects. And again, it's in everything except for plastic baby bottles. So I will leave it at that. But yes, I would not trust sports bottles or any plastic materials that say BPA free, because the substitutes BPS, BPSIP, BPFB, and there's a whole bunch of bisphenol polymers that are now being substituted for BPA because BPA is considered a bad guy in terms of the market now knows about it, consumer market. So all of these other bisphenols are now being used in its place. And of course, we don't always know that they're there, but they have been found to have even worse endocrine effects for some of these bisphenol compounds than even BPA.